Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin Lynch. This is my formative assessment lesson plan presentation. For my formative assessment lesson plan presentation, the lesson plan that I chose to do it on was on slope and creating a measure of slope for 6th grade students. So first I'll go through an overview of the lesson. The lesson that I chose starts by having the students take the pre-assessment called steepness. It's the pre-assessment and I will show you what that looks like. The pre-assessment on steepness asks the students to first align 5 segments, A, B, C, D, and E, shown right here, and put them in order from least steep to the most steep. The next part focuses on line segments given 2 endpoints only. Now we're not shown the visual for the slope, but the students are shown the 2 endpoint coordinates, the x, y coordinates. And again, they're asked to label them from least steep to most steep, and they have to explain their method as well. And that was just the steepness, that was their pre-assessment that they had to complete. So after they completed their pre-assessment, the teacher went ahead and put them into collaborative groups. And this time they had to sort different line segments from least steep to most steep. There were 4 shown on the graph, like we saw on the pre-assessment, and 4 that they were only given the endpoints. The students are asked to discuss and again list them from least steep to most steep, and they had to agree as a group. So there was a lot of discussion, and they had to come to a group consensus in which they can all agree upon. After that, they came together as a whole class, and they discussed and shared their thinking and the conversation that occurred in their groups now with the whole class. And the teacher asked questions to facilitate the lesson and also push their thinking a little bit further. The students then went back into groups and they were given student work samples in order to analyze them. The first work sample is right here. This is not student work samples in the class, but rather other work samples that the teacher just gave them, and they had to assess and look at how these students found the slope of a line. They had to come up with things that they agreed with, things that they liked that they did, and things that they disagreed with and thought that were incorrect when they were finding the slope. This is the second student's work sample, so you can take a look at that and see how the 2 students have now used different methods. So the students have to talk about and discuss which method they think is the most accurate. This is the third student work sample that they had a debate over and talk about and discuss, and this one's the 4th one right here. So once they came back together as a whole class after they had time to talk in individual groups. So now we have a whole class discussion about slope, and the teacher again is trying to ask questions to guide their thinking and deepen their understanding to come up with a formal definition of what slope is. After that whole class discussion, the students are then given the steepness assessment that I showed you at the beginning of the video and take it again in order to see their growth from the beginning of the lesson and now at the end of the lesson. So there are certain accommodations that I make to this lesson for students with disabilities and learning differences. The first one is a hands-on manipulative called a geoboard. I would do this 2 different ways. The first way, they could either have it, and again, you would pick one of the methods based on your student's personal needs and which one you think that they would be most successful with. The first one over here is an actual physical geoboard where the students have it in their hands and they can manipulate with physical rubber bands the different lines and the different slopes. So you can tell them to go ahead and create a line on the geoboard that is up 1 and over 1. So the slope would be 1/2, and they have to show that their change in the y direction is 1, and they have to go over 2 pegs in the x direction to show a change of 2 units in the x direction. And again, that just makes this more of a hands-on concept and a more concrete example before they have to go and apply it abstractly. Over here, this is a geoboard app, and I have used this with my students. I have used this and it has been very successful in the past, and you could find it on the Math Learning Center. You can also download it as an app as well for your students, but this, and I'm going to pull it up now so you could take a look at it. This right here is the GeoBoard application and the screen that the students would see. So you could see that there's 2 rubber bands on here. So the students just take a color, whatever, either color rubber band, they put it on here, and you could tell them, okay, create a line with the slope up 1/3. So they'd have to go up 1 in the Y direction and over 1, 2, 3 in the X direction. The next time they might have to take another color, and they could start over here, and you might want a negative slope where they have to go up 2 and to the left 1. Okay, and you can have them do this again. This just gives them a more hands-on experience with slope and a more hands-on example. A second accommodation that I would also make is having to do with vocabulary. I would make a VKR chart or a VKR worksheet for my students where they get to rate 1 through 5 how comfortable they are with the new vocabulary. In math especially, there's a lot of new vocabulary that the students might not be familiar with, and that could, again, impair the students' understanding of the various concepts. So you can give this in the beginning of the lesson or the beginning of the topic that you're covering, and you can do it again at the end so that you can see a growth in the scores. It also, if you give it in the beginning, it gives the teacher a good idea of what vocabulary they might have to be pre-taught or what vocabulary you should go over in order for the students to be successful. So that's my presentation for the lesson plan. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing all of yours.